Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we are going to talk about Metal Lords 2022. All right, so I think Metal Lords 2022, spoilers for Metal Lords 2022, it's over on Netflix. It just dropped this Friday, and to me, this movie is about heavy metal, right? Post-death metal, right? And it's about three people's relationship to heavy metal. But the whole thing is about Dungeons and Dragons, if you ask me. The whole thing is about Dungeons and Dragons, if you ask me. And the reason why is it just resonates at the frequency of Dungeons and Dragons at such a high level that anybody who watches Dungeons and Dragons is going to understand what's happening. Anybody who's deep down the rabbit hole on Dungeons and Dragons is going to see their own reflection in this film at some point in one of the characters or more at different times, right? And just to be clear, because Dungeons and Dragons is absolutely name dropped and included in half the content in the world now, right? It is massively, it literally has Dungeons and Dragons in it. I can't tell you, like, this is the thing, it's just another thing that has Dungeons and Dragons, and not like, it doesn't have, oh, here's a game that we're playing that's like Dungeons. It's literally Dungeons and Dragons. And they have the Dungeons and Dragons books on the table. They have the screen. Like, I think they even show D&D Beyond on the screen. Like, so D&D is in this film, right? But the movie is about heavy metal. But when you watch it, if you're deep in the weeds on Dungeons and Dragons, you see a lot of the issues that we deal with are being dealt with very directly in the film. So I want to talk about the connective tissue between Dungeons and Dragons and Metal Lords 2022. So Metal Lords 2022 is a really fascinating film. And basically, it is about high school students. It's about three high school students who are connected at different levels to heavy metal, okay? So it's three students, Hunter, Kevin, and Emily, all right? So Hunter is a dyed-in-the-wool nerd, right? And actually, you know what? You can't even say nerd anymore, because in most high school, I'm aware of, like, I got 4 kids, right? So I know what modern high school is like to some extent. And one of the things that's happening in high school right now, okay, is you got this situation where, like, back in the day, if you were weird, you were on the outside, right? Weirdness does not put you on the outside nowadays in high school. Almost nothing does, right? Everybody's so unique that the idea of an outsider in high school seems hard to differ. One of the things that I think we've seen today is that everybody has their own struggles. Oh, you struggled in high school? Guess what? Everybody does. Even the popular people, they all have their own unique struggles. And we've advanced as a culture to be like, oh, you got problems in high school? Who gives a rat's? Everybody does, right? They all just look different, right? And so the idea of an outsider is problematic in a high school setting. But this movie shows that Hunter is an outsider, not because people are keeping him out and pushing him out, right, in what he's doing, but because he himself is pushing people away constantly, and he has real struggles and absolute burning rage against the world in his heart, and this distances himself from people, right? But the one thing that makes him level, that allows him to remain stable in the world, is heavy metal, right? It is his jam, right? And he learns about heavy metal, he wears heavy metal, he is heavy metal, he plays heavy metal. It's everything to him, right? And then he has this friend, Kevin, right? And they are best buds. They are, like ride or die day ones to each other, right? And they are friends. But the thing is, Hunter is so into heavy metal that it's really not functionally possible for anyone to spend any amount of time with him without getting into heavy metal themselves, because it's all he talks about and all he cares about, right? And so Kevin then, like, is recruited by Hunter to play in his band. And Kevin just plays drums in the marching band, and he has one drum, right? But, like, Hunter wants him to learn polyrhythms so he could play in Hunter's post-metal death band, right, which is called Skullflower, right? And so basically Hunter is this intense Adamant person who only cares about heavy metal, and his friendship has to come through a lens of heavy metal, right? Because he's so deep in the weeds on it, right, that essentially he can't really interact or function with anybody who doesn't have a deep understanding or a deep knowledge of heavy metal, right? But then Hunter is somewhat self-aware and is recruiting people to bring them down the rabbit hole with him, right? Boy, oh boy, do I resonate with this. I am very much here, right? Like, I care so much about Dungeons & Dragons, and it's so much in my head and in my heart that I really struggle legitimately to have friends who don't understand D&D at a very, very deep level and don't have a very significant commitment to the game. I literally am like, I don't know if I can really be friends with you, right? Like, it's very, very real, right? And really fascinating to me, right? And so when I saw this movie, I'm like, wow, right? Like, that is, boy, is that spot on, right? And so the fact that this movie really explored, right, that for some of us, when we go down the rabbit hole on something that's important to us, it stops being a hobby. It becomes something far more important. It becomes a life path. And that's the thing. It's so clear that for Hunter, heavy metal is a life path. This is not some small thing that he cares remotely about. He cares deeply about it, right? And anybody who's going to be in his orbit and spend any kind of amount of time with him is going to have to understand and respect heavy metal, right? And I have not seen a lot of films that have really kind of discussed this, where what you do when you choose a life path, it's so deep for you that you struggle to interact with people who are ignorant or non-respecting of it. Very, very interesting, right? So, one, I'm very curious if any of you guys have seen this Metal Lords thing. It's just screams Dungeons and Dragons to me. Like, this thing is like, oh, this is very much Dungeons and Dragons. And so I'm really curious if you are here, witnessing this thing. And then also, I'm very curious too, like, are you in the same space? Do you struggle to be friends with people who don't have an understanding of Dungeons and Dragons at a fairly deep level, or don't have respect for it? I have to be honest with myself. I do. I like, my friendships are foundationally grounded in Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't think I can really pretend that's not true anymore. And I felt good watching this film, because I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one. Like, other people are there, but with different things. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.